Hello, dear reader. It is good to have you here. I hope today's reading has helped you understand not only yourself a little better, but also the people around you. Today, we did not only talk about you, we talked about others, because every relationship is the meeting of two different psychic houses, and learning to communicate begins long before words. It begins by learning to distinguish what belongs to you from what belongs to someone else. Earlier this week, we discovered that reality is never perceived on its own. It is always interpreted through a context. The very same event can have completely different meanings depending on our history. Relationships work exactly the same way. Imagine that someone does not reply to your message. Maybe they are busy. Maybe they are exhausted. Maybe they simply forgot. But your machine room may immediately tell another story. They're rejecting me. They're angry with me. They don't care anymore. The event has not changed. Only the interpretation has. So before reacting, I would like you to ask yourself one simple question. Does this belong to me? Or does it belong to the other person? Does my fear belong to this relationship? Or does it belong to my own history? Perhaps this feeling is telling me something important. Perhaps it is not about the present at all. You do not have to know the answer immediately. Simply asking the question already creates something precious. It creates space between reality and interpretation. And that space is where healthier relationships begin. Once you have created that space, something else becomes possible. Curiosity. One of the biggest mistakes we make in relationships is believing that we already know what the other person thinks. We stop discovering. We start assuming. Instead of saying, "You don't care about me," ask, "What happened?" Instead of saying, "You're angry with me," ask, "How are you feeling?" Instead of saying, "I know exactly why you did that," ask, "Help me understand." Questions reduce projections, because every genuine question allows reality to replace imagination. Remember, you cannot see inside another person's machine room. Neither can they see inside yours. The only way to discover another person's inner world is to ask. Today's chapter introduced another important idea: time. Every machine room has its own rhythm. Some people know immediately what they feel. Others need silence before they understand themselves. Some forgive quickly. Others slowly. Some fall in love rapidly. Others build trust over months. Do not expect understanding at the speed of your anxiety. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is to stop talking, not because the conversation has failed, but because the other person needs time. Communication does not only happen through words. Sometimes communication continues while both people are silent. Respect the other person's rhythm, but observe something equally important. Do they also respect yours? Do they allow you time to think? Time to calm down? Time to make a decision? Or must everything happen immediately? Healthy communication respects both people's rhythm, not only one person's. Now, I would like you to ask yourself another question. Is your communication producing results? Not perfect conversations, real results. After talking with this person, do you feel heard? Do you feel understood? Do you understand them better? Do they understand you better? Has something changed? Or do you keep having exactly the same conversation again and again? Healthy communication changes something, not necessarily immediately, but gradually, little by little. If months go by and nothing ever changes, if nobody feels more understood, if nobody becomes more curious, then perhaps the problem is no longer communication. Perhaps the relationship itself is no longer functioning. I would like to finish by connecting today's chapter with everything we have learned this week. Earlier, we talked about the ideal ego, the part of us that still hopes to become complete, the part that still dreams of finally receiving what was missing, to finally be loved, accepted, chosen, recognized. Then we talked about dependency, and we discovered that dependency often keeps us attached to the hope that something outside ourselves will finally complete us. Unfortunately, toxic relationships often feed exactly these two mechanisms. They do not nourish reality. They nourish fantasy. Instead of discovering another person's inner world, they encourage you to imagine it. One day, soon, eventually, when the time is right, everything will be different. Do you notice something? None of these sentences has a date. And earlier this week, we learned something important. Reality has dates. Fantasy does not. Reality says, we'll talk again tomorrow. Fantasy says, one day everything will change. Reality says, I can't promise you that. Fantasy says, trust me, soon. Little by little, you stop relating to the person who actually exists. You begin relating to the future version of them that your machine room keeps imagining. One day, he'll change. One day, she'll respect me. One day, we'll finally be happy. At that moment, you're no longer discovering another person's inner world. You are protecting your own fantasy, and your dependency begins feeding it. Your ideal ego begins feeding it. Hope slowly replaces reality. Dialogue slowly disappears. Curiosity disappears. Questions disappear. Only projections remain. And paradoxically, you become more and more alone because you are no longer in a relationship with another person. You are in a relationship with your own imagination. That is why leaving a toxic relationship is often so difficult. You are not only letting go of a person, you are letting go of the future you kept hoping for. The future in which they would finally change, finally understand you, finally love you the way you needed. That future was never real, but your machine room believed in it. And letting go of a fantasy often hurts as much as losing a person. Perhaps even more. Growing psychologically means having the courage to leave fantasy and return to reality. Because reality may disappoint you. But reality is also the only place where genuine love can exist. So today, before your next conversation, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, does this belong to me, or does it belong to the other person? Then be curious. Ask questions. Give the other person time. Observe whether they do the same for you. And ask yourself one final question. Is this relationship helping both of us discover each other? Or is it simply feeding our fantasies? Tomorrow, we will talk about your own self again. Until then, try asking more questions to the people around you. You may be surprised by what you discover. See you tomorrow, dear reader.